Hello friends, welcome to my channel. This is Abhirami and today I am here to share with you the humerus. So before we go into the introduction of the humerus, first let me give you some basics. So condyle of a bone means a rounded prominence at the end of the bone which helps in articulation with another bone. And an epicondyle means an elevation on top of the condyle and it gives attachments to various muscles. Okay. Now let's see about the epiphysis, diaphysis and metaphysis. The epiphysis is the end of the long bone and diaphysis is the shaft of the long bone. The metaphysis is the part between the diaphysis and the epiphysis. The important thing here is that the metaphysis has a part called the epiphyseal plate. The epiphyseal plate helps in the growth of the bone, and on the adults the epiphyseal plate becomes the epiphyseal limb, because the growth of the bone is over. Okay, now let me move on to the introduction of the humerus. The humerus is a long bone in the upper limb, and the humerus has three parts, that is the upper end, lower end and shaft. Let's talk about the upper end now. There are 5 features for the upper end, that is head, neck, greater tubercle, lesser tubercle and bicipital groove. Now let's talk about the head. The head is rounded and smooth, and the head projects medially, backwards and slightly upwards. The head forms 1/3 of a sphere, and the head forms the glenohumeral joint or the shoulder joint, and it is covered by the hyaline cartilage, which is thicker in the middle and thinner at the periphery. Okay, now let's move on to the greater tubercle. As you can see in this diagram, this is the anterior aspect of the right humerus and this is the posterior aspect of the right humerus. This is the head of the humerus and this is the greater tubercle. The greater tubercle on the posterior aspects gives rise to 3 impressions, that is the upper, middle and lower. The upper part gives rise to the supraspinatus muscle, the middle part gives rise to the infraspinatus muscle and the lower part gives rise to the teres major muscle. The greater tubercle on the anterior aspect extends up a little and forms the supraspinatus muscle over here too. Okay, now let's talk about the lesser tubercle. The lesser tubercle is an elevation on the anterior aspect of the upper end of the humerus, and the lesser tubercle gives rise to the subscapularis muscle. Now, between the greater tubercle and the lesser tubercle, there is something called the bicipital groove or the intertubercular sulcus. The bicipital groove or the intertubercular sulcus gives attachment to the long head of the biceps brachii and its synovial sheath, and then the anterior ascending branch of the circumflex humeral artery. In the intertubercular sulcus, there is a lateral lip and the medial lip. This end has the lateral lip and this end has the medial lip. Okay, now let's move on to the next thing, that is the lower end. The lower end of the humerus has the capitulum, trochlea, which are the articular parts of the humerus. Okay, the capitulum is a convex rounded projection which articulates with the head of the radius, and the trochlea is a fully shaped structure on the medial end and it articulates with the trochlear notch of the ulna. Above the capitulum there is something called the radial fossa, which articulates with the head of the radius along with the capitulum when there is a full flexion of the elbow. And above the trochlea there is something called the coronoid fossa, which articulates with the coronoid process of the ulna. Okay, this is the medial epicondyle and this is the lateral epicondyle. The medial epicondyle is present on the medial side and the lateral epicondyle is present on the lateral side. And above the medial epicondyle, this is the medial supracondylar ridge and this is the lateral supracondylar ridge. Okay, now let's move on to the shaft of the humerus. The shaft of the humerus is rounded on the upper part and it is flattened on the lower part. It also extends from side to side to form the condyles. Okay. In the humerus, there are 3 borders and 3 surfaces. The 3 borders are the anterior border, lateral border and medial border. The 3 surfaces are the anterolateral surface, anteromedial surface and the posterior surface. To know more about the anterior border, please check out this video. This is the right humerus seen from the front. This is the head of the humerus. This part is the upper end. So this part completely is the upper end. And from here to here, it is the shaft of the humerus. And this part is the lower end. Now, let me tell you where the anterior border of the humerus is present. There is something called the bicipital groove in the upper end of the humerus. Bicipital groove is also called as the intertubercular sulcus. It is present over here. Now, the bicipital groove has two lips, the lateral lip and the medial lip. This is the lateral lip of the bicipital groove. Rounded in the lower half and it ends in the radial fossa. So the fossa above the capitulum is the radial fossa. Now let's see about the medial border. So this is the anterior aspect of the right humerus and we are going to determine where the medial border is. So the medial lip of the bicipital groove is where the medial border starts and it goes along and ends at the medial epicondyle. On its lower part, there is a sharp ridge called the medial supracondylar ridge, which gives attachment to the intermuscular septum. The intermuscular septum divides the two muscles. On the middle of the medial border, the rough strip gives attachment to the coracobrachialis muscle over here. And above the medial epicondyle, there is a muscle called pronator teres attached to the medial border. That is all about the medial border. Now let's see about the lateral border. The lateral border on its upper end is almost not visible, it is indistinct. And on its lower end, it forms the lateral supracondylar ridge. That is over here. Okay. So yeah, and on the posterior aspect of the upper end, the lateral border forms the three impressions of the greater tubercle, which give attachments to the supraspinatus, infraspinatus and teres minor respectively. Now let's talk about the three surfaces of the humerus. That is the anteromedial surface, anterolateral surface and the posterior surface. So the anterolateral surface is present over here. Okay, this part is the anterolateral surface. And the anterolateral surface is between the anterior and the lateral border. On its middle, it is marked by a characteristic V-shaped tuberosity called the deltoid tuberosity, which gives attachment to the deltoid muscle. Right. And on the back of this part, there is something called the radial groove. Now let's talk about the anteromedial surface. The anteromedial surface on its upper end is very small and it lies between the anterior border and medial border. On its upper end, it is very narrow and it gives rise to the floor of the intertubercular sulcus. And on its middle, near the medial border, it gives rise to the nutrient foramen. Okay. Then let's talk about the posterior surface. The posterior surface of the humerus has an oblique ridge which gives attachment to the lateral head of the triceps and it has a radial groove below it. Okay. That is all about the surfaces of the humerus. Now let me talk about the side determination. Okay, so if you have a humerus in your hand, how should you place it? You should place the head slightly medially, backwards and upwards. And you should make sure that the intertubercular sulcus, greater tubercle and lesser tubercle lie on the front. And the olecranon fossa must lie on the back. Okay, now let's move on to the attachments of the humerus. Okay, starting from the first, the supraspinatus is attached to the greater tubercle and on the posterior aspect, the greater tubercle has three impressions, upper, middle, lower. It gives attachment to the supraspinatus, infraspinatus and teres major respectively. This is the lesser tubercle, and the lesser tubercle gives attachment to the subscapularis muscle. The intertubercular sulcus or the bicipital groove has two lips, the lateral lip and the medial lip. The lateral lip of the bicipital groove gives attachment to the pectoralis major. The floor of the bicipital groove gives attachment to the latissimus dorsi, which is in the middle, and the medial lip gives attachment to the teres major. And then on its middle part, there is a V-shaped tuberosity called the deltoid tuberosity, and it gives attachment to the deltoid muscle. Okay. This part is called the coracobrachialis. This muscle is called the coracobrachialis, and it is attached to the middle of the medial border. And this muscle is called the medial head of triceps. It is present on the lower half of the posterior aspect, and a part of it comes over the superior aspect. The medial head of triceps is always present below the radial groove. Now let's talk about the brachialis muscle. The brachialis muscle is present on the lower end of the humerus, and the brachialis muscle extends forwards onto the posterior side, and it is present over here too. This is the brachioradialis muscle, which is present on the lateral border, and this is the extensor carpi radialis longus muscle, and the extensor muscle is present also on the lateral border on the lower end on the superior aspect. This is the common extensor origin and common flexor origin. The common extensor origin is present on the lateral epicondyle, and the common flexor origin is present on the medial epicondyle. This is the radial fossa, and this is the coronoid fossa, which was already explained before. So let's move on to this part of the humerus. So here there is a oblique ridge which gives attachment to the lateral head of triceps, and there is a radial groove above which the lateral head of triceps is present, and below the radial groove the medial head of triceps is present. And the deltoid muscle is also present on the posterior aspect on the middle part of the bone. Right. So this is the capsule of attachment of the lower end. It is also over here. Now let's move on to the next thing, that is the ossification of the humerus. In the humerus, there is one primary center and 7 secondary centers for ossification. The primary center appears in the middle of the shaft in the 8th week of the intrauterine life, and it fuses with the bone at the first year. The 3 secondary centers are present on the upper end. The first one is present on the head, the second one is present on the greater tubercle, the third one is present on the lesser tubercle. The one on the head appears in the first year, the one on the greater tubercle appears in the second year, and the one on the lesser tubercle appears in the 5th year. And these 3 fuse with each other at the 6th year, and they fuse with the bone at the 20th year. Bone means the shaft, so they fuse with the shaft at the 20th year. And there are 4 secondary centers in the lower end, one in the capitulum and the lateral flange of the trochlea. Flange means a ridge. So the capitulum and the lateral flange of the trochlea have one center. The medial flange of the trochlea has another center, and the lateral epicondyle has another center. The medial epicondyle has a last center. So these 3 centers, that is the capitulum and the lateral flange of trochlea, appear in the first year. The medial flange of the trochlea appear in the 9th year, and the lateral epicondyle appear in the 12th year, and they fuse with each other at the 14th year, and they fuse with the shaft at the 16th year. Okay, and the medial epicondyle has a center which appears in the 4th to 6th years, and it fuses with the bone at the 20th year. So that is all about the ossification of the humerus. Now let's move on to the clinical anatomy of the humerus. In the clinical anatomy of the humerus, we have the 3 nerves that are directly related to the humerus, that is the axillary, radial and ulnar. In the clinical anatomy of the humerus, the first thing is that there are 3 nerves that are directly related to the humerus, that is axillary nerve, radial nerve and the ulnar nerve. In this image, you can see that the axillary nerve occurs at the surgical neck, the radial nerve occurs over the radial groove, and the ulnar nerve occurs over the posterior aspect of the medial epicondyle. Now, injury to any of these will cause an injury to the nerves too. Moving on, the fracture is the second thing. The fracture is common at the surgical neck, shaft and the supracondylar ridge. The fracture at the supracondylar ridge occurs often when we fall with the outstretched hand, and the lower fragment is usually displaced downwards, causing the elbow to be unduly prominent. Also, the three bony points of the elbow are not disturbed during the fracture. The three bony points are the lateral epicondyle, medial epicondyle, and the olecranon process. So they are not disturbed during the fracture, but the ulnar nerve and the median nerve may be damaged. This also leads to Volkmann's ischemic contracture, which means a claw hand. Usually that is the symptom of the Volkmann's ischemic contracture, and it may also lead to myosotis ossificans, which is a inflammatory disease. It is usually an autoimmune disorder, but in this case also it can happen. And in the junction of the upper thirds and the lower thirds of the humerus, there is a very less blood supply. So a fracture at this place may cause a delayed union or non-union of the ossification centers. So that is all about the humerus. Thank you for watching this video. If you like it, then please like, share and subscribe and comment on it. Thank you.